As you may know, the popular show Ed, Edd and Eddy has been running for a long time. However, between October 7th, 2003 and October 21st, 2003, episode 34 was accidentally released 1 week before it was scheduled to. It was also known to some around the office the primary writer had been sick with the flu, and instead of going to make episode 34, the show was supposed to replay episode 1. At 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern, people reported a very disturbing new episode premiering on the Cartoon Network. Some children were unfortunate enough to see it. Apparently the quality of the episode was mediocre when held to the regular standards. Animation was choppy, sound was constricted, and very muffled. Reports of the line running up and down, similar to a crappy VHS tape, were received. Serenity was described as overwhelming dark and depressing without changing props and other background objects. Stormy looking. Characters also behaved oddly. Instead of the normal goofy hijinks-inspired personalities, viewers complained they seemed extremely aggravated, very hateful toward with each other, and constantly about to begin sobbing after the lines. The protagonist also had a very bad lisp. No one knows why, but he spoke with a sexual tone that further bothered the viewers. I was one of those viewers. The episode began with Eddy walking down the street with Ed. I noted that Double D was missing. There was an angular shot coming from in front of the two to show them walking toward the viewer. He, or should I say Eddy, was wearing the angry look that he does when something goes wrong. His eyes were red around the iris. Ed, looking absolutely forlorn and practically dragged behind Eddy, tears in his eyes, which were both lazy and looking in opposite outward directions. Kevin, the serious bully, was riding his bike opposite of the Eds toward. The shot became blurry, and low moans were heard coming from Eddy before Kevin hit him, which never happened because the screen went to black. The screen snapped back and Kevin was again hitting toward Eddy. The view was so blurry this time, all I saw was a green blob heading toward a yellow one. Again, the low moan, only this time it sounded like the microphone was broken and loud static came, greatly overshadowed the moan. A claymation sequence of Double D sleeping in Eddy's bed came up. Honestly, it must have been the atmosphere, but I jumped and shivered. Walking up and getting out of bed, he moved oddly around the circular room, the fast pitter-patter of footsteps being the only audio. The steps sound were very clear, as I was shown a bird's-eye view of him scrambling around the room. There was no visible doors. Double D began screeching, sounded like a fisher cat, as he moved wildly around the cell of the room faster and faster until the screen became blurry again. The purple room's color swallowing a now orange blur. An extreme close-up of Eddy's front door sat, an absolute silence of mattering a long time. At least 2 minutes of dead silence in the door. Next, we see Jimmy and Sarah at the doctor of some sort, probably oral. Jimmy, obstructed in the view by a hanging lamp, is crying loudly, with Sarah trying to comfort him in an unusual warm fashion. It hurts, Sarah. It hurts. Suddenly the door of the room smashed open by a new character, a dentist. His face wasn't shown because he was tall enough to be out of the shot. Sarah was escorted out of the room. Jimmy was shown. His headgear was mangled. The front bent upward, stretching his lip very high, tearing. The front of his gums were tickling blood, and teeth were missing. The disturbing part was he had lost both his arms and legs beforehand, apparently, and sat paraplegic. I almost cried as I came to the conclusion the others had beaten him up and bent his headgear. The camera stayed on this mangled face for a few seconds, still as a picture, silent as ever. Then commercials came on. We are instantly assaulted with a very hairy Rolf in his darkened shed, fisting a cow repeatedly. The visual loops and gets blurry again as the scene pans out. Naz is reading a magazine on her couch. The quality is now perfect. Eddy is now alone. Without Ed, the quality declines worse than before and he is still walking. The sun now lightening the mood, somewhat as he smiles and begins running. The door is shown again, and we see through Eddy's eyes as he reaches out and opens it. His house is now nice and bright, but a very badly played violin is blurry. The only audio in this scene as he makes his way through the house. Eddy opens the door to his room. Johnny is shown under Naz's couch cushion as he crawls out on all four in a comedic way and pops up behind her, still obvious. I laughed because someone forgot to draw his eyes and I thought of a mole. But suddenly, I stopped laughing as he started swallowing her head. Still in a cartoonish fashion, of course, but this was different. He and she stayed like this until she started kicking and struggling. Johnny held her like this until she went limp. A zoom in his face revealed extremely small human eyes. Double D was lying on Eddy's floor, no longer in claymation. The camera showed Eddy's house for a remainder of the episode, about 3 minutes, and the next program began on the spot.